Some of the biggest successes I had were in '91. I started a company and I sold it for in the 8 figures for in the early 2000s. Right, I started another company, Gap Wireless, in 2007, and I sold that in the 8 figures in 2022. And now I bought a third company.
For those who haven't heard you, this is a really exciting, because when I looked at your background, and I was telling you before I hit the record button, couldn't sleep last night, and I bought your book, started reading it, because you are 30 years sales co-founder of VP/GM of Gap Wireless, a leading wireless technology distributor, and author of Never Sit in the Lobby, 57 Winning Sales Factors, which is a field-tested playbook on selling. And as someone who's been selling for 20 years, training 2,000 people, I honestly thought when I first picked up your book, and this is a confession, I probably shouldn't confess this to you because it's the first time we've actually met, is my pre-assumption was this is probably just going to be like another sales book that's very generic, not founded in anything. And I kept reading and reading and reading, and then I found myself from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, I was already on chapter 5 or so. And I was like, I got to get back to bed. But I couldn't put it down, because what I loved about your book, it was founded in reality, number one. It was, you can tell when somebody writes if they've really had those lived experiences. Like when you talked about being in the lobby, how most people just play on their phone, those little micro things that we don't think about, that if our staff did these little things, they would have a huge impact. Is there anything you wanted to add? I know I'm getting a little over excited to your background that maybe.
Except in 2025, the 30 became 40. So yeah, because I mean, I went into sales in '85, and so that makes it 40 years now in sales. I went into the workforce in '82.
What I also like, I didn't plan on this. You had talked about in one part of your book how you actually used to work at Sears working on watches. And
yeah,
you had an old watchmaker you learned a lot from. And there's just
Romeo.
a lot of humble beginnings you had. So you launched a company, 1991. You still lead sales teams today. And what core beliefs have never changed for you on the subject around sales?
Probably the two biggest ones would be, I always want you to be a pleasure to do business with. And that's a core value for me. The second one would be, regardless of any technology, doing it face to face is better. People buy from people. And I mean, that is definitely an absolute. Those are probably two of the things. I mean, when I think of core values, I think of my more recent ones, which are things like results matter and conscientious contributions and things like that. But when it comes to selling over those years, getting in front of the customer, how to get, act, and stay in front of your customer is the most important thing. And how do you want to be a pleasure to do business with always, even when you lose a big deal? And that's super important to me. That would be my first answer.
The thing that's really hard for salespeople to accept reality is that it just takes 10 to 20 times to get with a customer. And what you led in product, that when I was started doing deeper into Gap Wireless, seeing the type of technology you had to sell, it's very intricate. But in your book, you said the best salespeople are
Greed-based learning.
Greed-based learning. I remember I started reading at 3 a.m. So
yeah, no
problem.
No problem. Yeah.
And that a salesperson, if they can know those core things, they can sell, they can work with anyone. Is that part of that never sit in the lobby mindset you created based on your 40 years of selling and developing people, or is there more to that?
The greed-based learning thing it's got two meanings. I mean, the one meaning is I'm always trying to give you the cheat code for things. One of the things is when you sell a lot of products, I mean, how do you learn them? And so that's where I came up with this whole concept and this epiphany about greed-based learning. When you're trying to absorb knowledge just blindly sitting down and reading a book, it's virtually impossible. But what I realized in other areas of my life, the way I absorbed information was, I'm going to give you, a couple of examples, right? One of the examples would be, when you buy a car. I don't really know anything about cars. I don't really care to know anything. I just want to have a nice car, but I mean, I don't really care about the car itself in the sense of what the horsepower is or any of that. Meanwhile, friends of mine, they can recite every spec or whatever. But every 4 years, right, I get a new car. I got to convince my wife which car we're buying. I become an expert on the 3 or 4 cars that I may potentially be getting, and as I said recently, right now I'm kind of in the Audi, BMW, Mercedes class of wanting cars and things like that. And those are the ones I'm learning about, right? Whereas before it was kind of like Infiniti, Acura. And then before that, it was Nissan, Maxima, and Honda. And then prior to that, it was like Ford, Chevy, and GM. Ford, yeah, whatever. Ford, yeah, or Chrysler or whatever. But the thing is I could tell you every spec and everything. And oh, honey, it's got anti-lock brakes and it's got adaptive cruise control and active lane avoidance with the GPS is built in now. It's got the full screens and it's got the autonomous such and such and blah blah blah. And I mean, it takes zero effort for me to know this, because the whole thing is that I have this whole, in my mind, I have this whole kind of like greedy aspect that I'm getting one of these things. And I don't know why, but because of that, I'm able to retain it. And so if you can attach a win to what you're learning, it's much easier to retain the information. A second example of where there's a volume of information and it's how could you ever remember it, and then people do, is in the areas of stocks and bonds and say crypto or whatever. And so, crypto is very front of mind for a lot of people. A lot of people it's out of mind, but nonetheless, there's thousands of coins out there or whatever. And I would challenge you. I don't know. Do you know how much Bitcoin is worth today? Off the top of your head?
I always know it's always like 20 something thousand. It's out of scope for me to buy for a digital coin for Paul Leon.
Yeah. It's a little bit more than that right now. Today it's at like 116K, right?
Oh my!
And I can also tell you the other ones. Ether's at 600, XRP's at around $3, and HBAR's around 25 cents. But the only reason why I know those is because those are the coins that I own. And so my mind instantly memorizes, and it's blazoned in my mind so that I know that if I look at any chart at any day, I know that, for instance, BTC is around 116K.
Okay.
So then I look at it, now it's at 117. Oh, it's going up. Whereas there's 1,000 other coins, I have no idea how much they are, and it makes it, but because I have that sort of, again, I call it greedy, but I'm using it as a cheat code to how I learn things. And so that's where, instead of learning the product and then trying to go out and generate interest in it, and then that's not the way I did it. The way I did it in sales was I just called the vendor and I said, hey, can you give me one or two things to say about this product to garner some interest and see if the guy wants to have a meeting or whatever. Give me the top 3 or 4 things about this product that make it interesting, which I'd have written down. Then I'd say, hey, I'm in your area. I'm coming, we've got a new product. It's a such and such. I know you guys use these things. Can we come by? And then the moment he says, oh yeah, well, we have budget for this, or we're doing that, instantly I'm thinking, oh, I'm getting a commission check out of this. And I would be able to absorb a lot more. I'd learn the product after I found an interest. That's when I took the deep dive, because I was able to associate a win with the product and I was able to retain it. Now with products and stuff, I didn't fight to keep the information. In my brain, if I had multiple requirements, I would remember it better than others, but I would remember it, sell it, and then forget it. So that's just the approach that I took. And I stopped basically taking new catalogs and trying to go through them and saying, oh, this one is this and this is that. I'd read it and I'd be asleep in minutes, right? So that's the whole concept of greed-based learning, right? And I use this because they're memorable, right? Not because I want you to be a greedy person, if I could say it that way.
Everybody buys for themselves. I think there was something I was listening to the other day where the guy said people go on YouTube for themselves, they read a book for themselves. You don't matter. The more you can just disappear into the process and help people buy is what really matters. I like that you said that people should do business face to face. I agree. I think the fact that people one of the things in your book I remember reading that I 100% align with is the lack of follow-up. It is a common denominator pain point, not just in where you come from, but it's so many people. But now we have stuff today that people can do virtually. And I have sometimes that critic side of me where there's somebody out there going like, but you can do a lot of this stuff virtually now.
No. Oh yeah.
Why is that?
So
let's squash that bug. Yeah,
but
please do. You can be yourself.
Whenever anyone says that, I have to go
curious.
Full stop, right?
Let's do it.
Like, okay, well, great. So first thing I'm going to give you is $50 million. Now you have $50 million, but you can only do one thing with it. You got to buy a private jet. Okay. So now I'd like you to take that $50 million and I'd like you to jump on a Zoom call with me. And I'm going to introduce you to your virtual flight attendant who's going to walk you on board your plane virtually. And You're then going to they're going to fly to Miami from your present location and enjoy hors d'oeuvres, snacks, drinks on the way. The pilot will come out and greet you virtually. And of course, you will land in Miami virtually. And then we'll fly back home. And at the end of the Zoom call, you'll give me the $50 million and I'll send you your jet. Would you ever, in a million years, spend $50 million on a jet without flying in the jet?
A million years.
Not in a million years. And so that is the grossest example of what I'm trying to say. Sure, yes, maybe if you sell SaaS products and maybe it caters itself to an online demo and all that, for sure. But what if you work for Salesforce and you're trying to get $1 million deal for Salesforce? Do you really think that the competitor to Salesforce with $1 million deal on the line is trying to do everything over Zoom? No, they're going to go to that company. They want to know whose shirts they're wearing, whose mouse pads are on the desk, what coffee mugs are there, what pens people are using, and what the competitive landscape looks like. And you can't do that over Zoom. And you could say, well, what products are you using now? Oh, we don't want to really discuss that. We just like to focus on your product. Whereas if you get in their business, you're going to see, hey, these guys are using an Intel product here for that, or whatever kind of products you're selling, or you can see it with your own eyes.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, you can see all the other things you didn't know they bought that you sell. And so yes, you can do things virtually, but I guess in one way I'm not the guy to call for that. Although some portion of the meetings I do that are virtual, the
Right.
real power and joy from selling actually comes from being in front of the customer. The Zoom thing is a grind, and if I can get a call lined up, even if I'm tired or whatever, once I get there, I find that I'm on stage and I'm in performance mode, and I love the call and forget everything else that's going on in my life. And it's the best part of the day is when you can actually be doing what a salesman is paid to do, which is be in front of customers closing business. A lot of that other stuff, I call that marketing.
One thing I appreciate is your passion, and I love passion. I'm a big passion guy. Talk to me a little more about, because you talk about winning sales presence. I feel everything you just said goes into that mindset, having a winning sales presence right there. And so and you're not just talking hearsay. Talk to me more about what you've accomplished as to why these beliefs from when you used to just sell watches or at least fix them back in Sears that you've been able to carry through the years. Talk about the results you've done having this mindset and what it can do for people who are just getting started. Because the goal of your book that I loved a lot was that I felt for $20 or however much I spent, I don't remember off the top of my head, was I'm getting a steal. I'm stealing your 40 years of experience. I'm stealing 40 years of true, honest mindset and work ethic and mistakes to avoid. Talk about the results you've accomplished, maybe some of those mistakes you may have made, but really focus on your successes so somebody doesn't hear that advice and go, that's just hearsay, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Some of the biggest successes I had were in 91, I started a company and I sold it for in the 8 figures in the early 2000s, right? That was a win. And then, I've started another company, Gap Wireless, in 2007, and I sold that in the 8 figures in 2022. And now I bought a third company. Now, this time I'm not starting it in Florida, and I'm going to try to grow it. So those are my biggest successes, and all of it was through selling the business and selling the entire company. But just in terms of sales, one of the most memorable deals, and I believe that most of the story is in the book, is the story of Dofasco and the steel plant, where we had literally no business there, and we were selling instruments that measure things, and they measure electronic signals. It doesn't really matter what they are. It doesn't matter to the story, but the steel plant that's producing steel and cold roll steel and all that, it produces a lot of electrical signals that need to get measured. And so
I trust you.
The thing is that I went there one day and I realized that they were looking for these instrument recorders, and so we had a different kind of recorder. In this day, they were looking for analog recorders, the old kind with the little squigglies and paper tapes and things like that. And we were introducing a new digital recorder. I got myself in the door. I was able to get FaceTime in front of them to show them this thing, and I was able to, for the guy at the production line, was able to show him how much better it was to use the digital solution And also I was able to figure out all the other measuring instruments that they were buying. And it was in the 80s, and it was over 500 grand worth of stuff. So this
Wow.
was like the better part of my whole year's sales in one deal. But the most important thing was that once I showed them that this product was a much better way of doing it, they're like, okay, well, that's fine. But I work for the steel plant. The steel plant's being installed by Toshiba. And so
Okay.
Toshiba makes these steel plants, and they install them all over the world, and they go there for 6 months and build you a steel plant and then hand you the keys. You can do what you want, but they told me to use the paper tape one, so go tell them. Well, where are they? And actually,
Yeah.
that's not completely true. My boss was with me, one of the guys who's taught me a lot of this stuff, and he's like, where are they? Where are they? Well, we were in Hamilton, Ontario. They're in Mississauga, near the airport in
Wow.
Toronto. What's the address? What's the guy's name? All right, Glenn, drive me there. And
Wow.
the president and he was the president of the company, right? He said, let's go to Toshiba. And so we went to Toshiba, knocked on the door. It wasn't a very big office because it was just a remote thing for 6 months. They'd rented some space for their staff and whatever. And we said, where's Jack, the Toshiba guy? And we went through the whole dog and pony, explaining to him why digital recorders were better, and that we found these other instruments that they wanted to buy. And eventually he got convinced as well, right? It's all fine and dandy though, but we don't buy anything. Everything electrical is supplied by Gullivan International. What do you mean? Well, Gullivan International, one of the largest electrical distributors in the planet, and anything with a wire on it or a plug or this is supplied to the plant by Gullivan. You got to get Gullivan to buy it. Where's Gullivan? Where? What's the address? Okay, who's the guy? And so Glenn, drive me to the place. Let's go. Banging on the door. It was an even smaller sales office for Gullivan, even though they're huge.
Yeah.
We found the guy and we talked to him. He's going, but we're supplying everything, that Dofasco, the steel plant, wants. You need the VP at Dofasco to agree. We already know where Dofasco was because that's where we started this morning, right? And so we said, now we got to drive back. And now we were 6 layers above the guy that was on the floor of the steel mill that told us to go to Toshiba, who told us to go to Gullivan, who told us we had to go back to Dofasco, right? We had none of the business spec'd in. At the end, we got the entire order for the entire electronic thing. It was $500. It made my whole year, right? And huge bonus, this, that, and the other thing or whatever. But what most people do is the guy on the floor says, Jack at Toshiba, go back to the office, and the boss says, what happened? Oh, they told me to talk to Toshiba, so I'm going to send them an email. Right?
Yeah.
And like, okay, sent him an email. What did he say? Oh, well, he didn't answer yet, right? And he's like, did you call him? Yeah. What did he say? Nothing. He didn't pick up. I left a voicemail. Great. So it's $500,000 deal. You called the guy who didn't pick up. You left a voicemail and sent him an email, which he didn't reply to. So basically, you haven't done anything. Most people feel like that's the right next thing to do. Whereas the real right thing was actually to literally get in your car and drive from one city to another. Obviously, it was geographically available. I mean, it wasn't that far away,
Right.
but
correct.
And literally do it instantaneously. And that I never lost track of that. If I was at a building or whatever, and they're saying there's 2 parts to this, I really like your thing, but my boss is the one that makes the decision.
Yeah.
Okay, well, could you drop me off at his desk on the way out? I'd like to, get 5 minutes with him.
Okay.
A lot of times they get a little antsy about that. And so I learned the cheat code for that is that every time you're selling anything, you have to look at the price of it. Right? It could be a $50 million jet, or it could be a $5 million prop plane, or it could be a $50,000 propeller. You have to look at the price of something that you're selling.
Yes.
And then you have to look at the company that's buying it. Correct. And you have to say, okay, I'm selling a $50,000 item to a company that's $4 million a year in revenue. Who's going to sign the order? Probably the owner. Now I'm selling a $50,000 item to a $9 billion corporation. Who's going to sign the order? And once I figured that out, in the process, I try to start at the highest possible level. And so again, in the book, I use the example of selling tow motors and forklifts, to warehouses. And where you call the CEO and you say, hey, I'm calling about our new, electric tow motors, 20% faster, 20% more efficient, 20% cheaper to operate, and the guy's like, I'm the CEO. I don't get involved with tow motors. and no problem.
Okay.
But who does? You know,
Yeah.
he's like, well, that's our vice president of logistics. Who's it? What's his name? His name's Paul. Okay, Paul. I was just talking to the CEO. He said you need to have a look at these new electric tow motors. He's like, I'm the VP. I don't do that. Call my head of logistics. I'm like, who's that? Oh, that's Bill. All right. So I call Bill, and Bill says, I don't do the tow motors. My foreman is in charge of the tow motors. Right. Call him. He's at the warehouse. Right. So I call the foreman, and I'm like, hey man, I've been on the phone with the CEO, the VP, and the head of logistics in your company. These guys are all dying to get one of these things in here for you to try. When can we do it? I don't do it. Actually, talk to the shop steward, right? Because he's the guy. I call him and I'm like, dude, if you don't get this in here, the CEO's gonna have your head on a platter.
Yeah.
And I'm dropping names, but I've talked to everyone in the cycle now. The whole point is that when I drop the tow motor off later, because I never fax the facts and I never ship the unless there's a logistical nightmare in the way. If someone asks for a brochure, a quote, a demo, I will always deliver it. Right? And if someone asks for a demo, it's mandatory. You got to deliver it and set it up for them because they don't use it if you don't do it. Right? It just sits there. So the guy delivers the tow motor. And as he's dropping it off, the shop steward's driving it around, loving it, turns corners, turns on a dime, gives you nickel change, quiet, it's a battery operated, whatever, this, that, and the next best thing. But while he's doing that, I call the CEO. I know you don't get involved with the tow motors, but I know that $120,000 PO is going to end up on your desk. But you should see this thing. And these guys are blown away. Please, give me 2 minutes. Just come down and have a look at this thing. And a minute later, the CEO's in the warehouse going, all right, Glenn, show me this tow motor. And the thing is, later, I know he's the one that's got to sign it off. Or maybe it's the VP. So at any point, I can call those people. It's not the foreman or the shop steward guy tells me, oh, I sent it upstairs. I'm like, what's that? I don't know. Went upstairs to the management. Great. Well, who's that? And I don't know.
Yeah.
And so how do I get my way up through the shop steward to the foreman, to the manager of logistics, to the vice president, to the CEO, and find the guy who's going to sign the particular thing and ask him. Because a lot of times when you're selling things, when you start at the top and you go down like that, you're going to find out that maybe you're not even going to be able to get the order because you're selling Toshiba tow motors, for instance, and you find out that Kawasaki also makes them, and they have a 5-year contract, unlimited for tow motors. And you might not have found that out, and you might have arranged to ship in tow motors on flatbeds before you've even realized that. But when you start at an appropriate level and work down, you find out are there any contractual things in the way? Is there funding and budget issues? Hey, we're never going to spend $120,000 on a tow motor. We rent them, we this, we that, right? And so those are some of the things that I apply to sales in order to save time and not get caught up, right?
You've been in this for 40 years. You sold, was it 2 8-figure sales in businesses? You have your third. You're ambitious. You're hungry. I will tell you 2 things that went through my mind, and I'm going to put them on the table and challenge you a little. One's a challenge. One was an observation. I was a comedian for many years. Part of what I was imagining as you were telling this story, are you familiar with the Benny Hill theme song? When you were talking about going back and forth and how much you have to do to please a client, that song that was like, you're over here, then you're back over there. That's what I'm thinking in my head.
Right.
But the second thing that I was curious about as you were telling this story, because I was attentively listening, was because of the fact that you prioritize in person, you prioritize that because it's important for relationship building. Have you seen a lot of crazy situations that people make excuses of, but because of your philosophies, you're able to win more because of this different mindset? Did you see that a lot because you went the other way when other people were going this way? Yeah. Everyone's going virtual. I'm going to stick to in person because the behaviors of customers have been this way.
The best way I can answer it is how I see it manifesting itself these days is because most of the people that I'm interacting with are people on my team, and the excuses they're giving me about not wanting to leave the office. Oh, they're on work from home and they're on, lockdown and they're this and they haven't come back since COVID and, blah, blah, blah and whatever. And the customers themselves are sometimes in that situation where now they have this unwritten rule where They don't answer emails, they don't pick up the phone, and they're never at their desk. And it's really hard. But the reality is, though, is that they do go to work. And if you're selling them something that's tangible, a piece of hardware or something, then clearly they're going to be using it at work. So at some point, they're going to be at work using it. To think that they're never there would be ridiculous. At some point, they got to be either using your or your competitor's product at work doing the thing. The point is that you have to get through your own mind. But the problem is it's not easy now because a lot of guys, they may or may not answer their desk phone. And so you really have to sort of persistent, and you got to try multiple things. You phone them, you got to phone multiple people. I give tricks about how to leave a voicemail, never less than 20 seconds, never more than 30 seconds. Get right to the point. Don't ask them how they are.
Yeah.
Just get to the point. And
point.
And these are all have little stories in the book about all these different pieces I'm telling you. And and then you phone them, you leave the voicemail, then you follow up with an email, then you phone them back, then you phone the guy that sits beside them or whatever. You have to be at trade shows that these guys go to, that maybe you can get the face-to-face and finally get what you need from them. Some cases you have to try to go to the office. One of the best tricks is maybe there's another guy that at that particular company, if you're selling into a territory, that you can get in to see, like to drop off some random either swag or maybe a new brochure, new catalogs, something relevant. You can say, hey, dude, can I just get 5 minutes? And then when you're there, say, hey, I've been trying to see Jack in engineering. Is there any way you could see if he could join us or whatever? Oh, I know Jack. Yeah, we golf every, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that's a good way to get, but you have to be persistent. And I mean, a lot of people, they just don't do it. And what happens is that they don't realize they've all shipped in demos. I'm there installing mine, and theirs are still in the box with the tape on it. No, I got to plug it in. I want to turn it on. I want to make sure you know how to use it. And they're like, well, we need it for like 2 weeks. And 2 weeks? Are you crazy? I go, I got to ship this on Thursday to this other guy. I can't keep them in stock. And I know I'm exaggerating for effect right now, but it's true. Yeah. Whatever amount of time they ask for, I divide it by at least 50% or half, and then say, no, I can't give it to you for that long because he's not going to use it. And so I create scarcity with it. And then they're like, oh, just ship it in. No, can't ship the I got to deliver it. I got to set it up. And then when I'm there and I said, give me 2 of your guys to show them how it works. This is Monday, right? This guy's now wandered off and he's playing on his phone doing something different, doesn't care. But the 2 guys I'm showing how to work the box or whatever, hey, you know what? I'm going to be back here on Wednesday. Can I check in with you guys to see how you're making out with it? They're like, yeah, no problem. And so now I have an appointment to see the guys using the box in 2 days. And so now I can come back and make sure, hey, did you use it? No, we didn't really touch it. Or it's been running neck and neck with the thing, and you're pumping out widgets faster than this one, or it's doing this or it's not doing that. And I can see my competitors on the same bake off or whatever. And also, so now I've come back, and I'm all the while I'm looking around the building, seeing other things I can sell them, finding out who specs that in, getting them to drop me off at their desk on the way out the door. And then they say, we'll be done. I got to ship it out on Thursday or whatever. I'll be back tomorrow to pick it up, kind of thing. Well, that's a lot of like back and forthing or whatever. And obviously, most of what I'm talking about are when you're in a geographic territory in your car where you can drive. If you cover the entire US, you're not going to be going 3 times in 1 week. But there's certain points in the cycle where you do need to be present in order to find out where you are or what have you.
The thing that I hear when you talk about this is really obsessing about the customer experience. I feel that's where this intention comes from, at least from my perspective. Right. You told a lot of stories I haven't got to yet, so quit spoiling your book for me. But
sorry.
But no, I'm messing with you. That was a dumb joke. But I remember I was looking through the voicemail, and one of the things I train, and I remember this was a similar challenge, and I'll share with you, is I always train a voicemail script of leave your number twice in the beginning, give the bottom line reason for the voicemail, leave it twice then, like Paul Leon, 407-496-6240, 407-496-6240. I did that when I used to sell B2B back in the day, and that always served me. And when I got in the training world, I was training at, and people were like, dude, that voicemail script, it's crazy. I always thought people didn't leave voicemails. I have a voicemail feature on my website. I have it everywhere. I can always tell I hate those stupid like AI voicemails, not to get too far off the rabbit. Within 10 seconds, it's hello. I'm always
I want to myself. Yeah.
Those are the
they're awful. awful. Yeah.
Please don't
Yeah.
kill yourself. You have to go buy an Audi,
No,
and
no.
you have to go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I
don't
got
do
a
that.
Mercedes.
But in your book, you do talk about those tough customer types, and you kind of already hinted at these tough different types of personas you dealt with and how you have to be politely persistent. Oh, give me 2 minutes of your time. Give me 5 minutes of your time. Is there any like definitions you have or any things that you can point to or pin the nail on the toughest persona type to overcome, but you're able to overcome it?
I mean, there's so many of them that are tough. I mean, the biggest ones are the ones that won't even communicate. They won't talk. They just don't have a voice. And no matter, you're trying to say anything. Honestly, I don't have a magic recipe for any of it. I'm always focusing on not being a pain in the ass for whoever I'm in front of, right? I talk about empathy in the book a lot. Why I do that is because I try to explain to people about what empathy really is, because most people confuse it with sympathy or compassion. I challenge everyone, learn the definitions of sympathy, empathy, and compassion, and figure out what they mean and where they're applicable, and don't use the wrong one at the wrong time. Sympathy is understanding someone's pain. I crashed my car. That sucks. Empathy is stopping what you're doing and putting yourself in the person's shoes and forgetting you exist as a human being and becoming them and saying, I just totaled my car. I'm Paul now. And we just spent all this money on this car, and start feeling what it's like to total your car. And that's empathy, is feeling what the person's feeling.
I like
Is
that.
the compassion is basically wanting to alleviate someone's suffering. It's the combination of sympathy and empathy in action becomes compassion. And so that becomes the three pillars of caring, in my opinion, right?
All right.
By trying to show empathy towards a customer and figure out regardless of what their personality is, and
Right.
give them that. Oh, the guy's quiet. Maybe I'll ask him about fishing. Right? No, that's not, your
Yeah.
rapport has to be natural. Don't over insinuate yourself in the area of trying to establish rapport. It has to all be natural. It has to be
Right.
authentic, and it has to be appropriate. It'd be
Right.
like me at 24 years of age going to the CEO who's 60 and asking him out to lunch in a golf game. It's just not
Right.
appropriate. And it might be at some point, but
Right.
when I first meet him, it's not appropriate. And the way I challenge people is the best way to get through to the customers is to stop figuring out about your product and start figuring out exactly what the customer does to make money. And that's not
Very good
completely
point.
intuitive to people. What do you mean? I mean, Xerox, they
Yeah.
make photocopiers.
Right.
No, but like, how do they make money selling photocopiers? They
Right.
probably don't make money selling photocopiers because they sell them at cost. They make money renting photocopiers. Wait a minute, they're a finance company. Maybe you don't want to be appealing to the guy in one department, you're in the wrong department. And then you want to be presenting your products and to present their natural features and benefits in a way that naturally tells the story that solves what the customer's true problems are. Right? That's what you need to do. And that's part of the winning sales presence. Because most people think about the winning sales presence, it's like have a nice suit. The winning sales presence, when I'm face to face with a salesman, I can use a lot more colorful language and a lot more
Yeah.
not safe for work
Yeah,
metaphors.
Yeah.
And so I had to adapt that story for the book so that I could tell it in a polite audience, right? But the whole idea behind winning sales presence is that attraction is not a choice. Like when I see a brand new Mercedes, like they don't have to tell me that it's awesome. Like I can tell. Like I can tell
That's
just by
a good
looking at
point.
it. I like that car, and if I upgrade, that's the one I want. Like it doesn't have to do anything. So that's why I tell everyone, show them the WSP, because that's what they want to see. Because then they will be naturally attracted to it, rather than you telling them that it's hot or telling them that it's awesome, fast, or powerful, or expensive. But what I do with these difficult customers you're asking me about is I just try a variety of ways of being the most pleasure to do business with that caters to their personality, including not saying much, if that's the case. Losing quickly.
Yeah.
One of my rules is I'd rather be last than second, because second is really just first place loser. And so losing fast means at the moment this will come in every sale that you don't win, there'll come a moment, and it may become earlier and you didn't notice it, but there will always be these moments where unequivocally you're not getting the deal. you just know that there's literally nothing more you can do because of X, Y, or Z. Maybe you're selling a $100,000 solution and they have 10K. Maybe your economy and they want Cadillac. There's a million reasons why they need it to run 80 things per second and you can only do 40 and you'll never get to 80. You're not the right product. And so the moment that occurs, I politely recuse myself of all activity. I don't do it rudely. I don't say, I'm out of here, da, 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 but I stop working for that customer and I run to the next customer who does want to buy the product that I sell, and I'm appropriate. Because while I'm there selling to the new guy, my competitors are still back at the old one fighting over the deal that they may or may not win. And I've
Right.
already given up on it. Win, or sort of, you want to lose really, really quickly, as quickly as possible, and get on and then go find a new customer before your competitor can catch up to you.
I like that. You got to lose fast. We'll do kind of a question that's a pick your own adventure in a way. Undoubtedly, for all your successes, you talked about losing fast, which I interpret that to be make mistakes quickly, get that fast feedback, learn from it. A lot of people can't do that. If you could go back, maybe back to when you were with Romeo in the Sears store and all your experiences, I know for me, I have been guilty of having wah moments, I call them, where like I feel sorry for myself. I've had a bad month. Like I'm guilty of that, Glenn, 100%. But if you could go back and talk to Glenn back in Sears with Romeo, and we could wave a magic wand, what would you say to that person to be like, these mistakes are going to happen. They're not a big deal because when you learn these key traits, you're going to fast track your success even further.
Well, Romeo taught me like an invaluable lesson called $10 million in diamonds. We worked together at Sears, and he was a watchmaker, and I was minor jewelry and watch repair. So I wasn't a full-fledged watchmaker, but I mean, he was teaching me like little how to fix bands and how to buff crystals and size things and minor repairs, right? It was fun. It was a great job. I was 17. I loved it. It was awesome, right? And he ended up leaving Sears and going and starting his own jewelry store in St. Catharines, near Toronto, but a small town. And it was his life goal. And the important part about Romeo is that he was like short guy, Italian dude, super strong accent, and he had polio. And so he was highly affected. Sometimes he could walk, but sometimes he was in a wheelchair. But when he walked, he had like the canes, and he was kind of like this and whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, he was probably 4 feet tall. And he had like an endless stream of girlfriends too. Right? He was always taking women out. I mean, to what end I don't know, but I mean, he led a passionate social life. I went to see him, and I said to him, I hadn't seen him in 10 years. Romeo, how's it going? He's going, oh my God, it's amazing, da da da. And I'm Glenn. He goes, I could be doing the $10 million selling the diamonds, but I'm so busy in the back selling or fixing the watches. What? And I mean, it took a while to sink in.
Yeah.
Dude, why don't you just hire a watchmaker and come up front and sell the diamonds? And then I realized that myself and a lot of my people, and over time, this, that, and the other thing, we get lost in the watch fixing and we miss the $10 million in diamonds deals.
Oh, wow.
And so the people that do $10 million a year in sales don't fix watches. They're focused on the big win. They start every call at a company is with the CEO.
100%. I like that.
And I mean, why? Because they're selling $10 million of things and they know the CEO signs deals that are that big, right? Now you can scale it down depending upon, the dollars. If it's not 10 million, it's 1 million or whatever, right? You have to right size it. But the logic and the rules hold true. That was a super important rule that I had learned well into my career. But even today, I have to slap myself saying, Glenn, you're fixing watches. We always tell our guys, stop fixing watches. I don't have to tell them the rest of the story because they all know the story. They know the rule. It just boils down to go sell some diamonds or stop fixing watches.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm in your inner circle with the lingo now, it feels like, that you shared that story with me. If listeners do one thing different this week when they hear this or wherever they hear this in their journey, to stop sitting in the lobby, what would it be?
The one thing, using that as kind of a saying, stop sitting in the lobby. I never sit in the lobby, so I don't have to stop because I never do it. But to whole stop sitting in the lobby, meaning practice all my rules and whatever, I would say find the one prospect that you've been afraid and push yourself and go one step bolder and make the call. And you'll find that it's just no more difficult than any other call. They're all the same. Ask for the meeting, show up. Selling starts when you stand up. You only get forever to make another impression. When you're building your career in sales and business and what have you, life is not one first impression. It's a series of impressions that are made over and over again.
Yep.
And every one of them is just as important as the first one. You always want to be putting your best foot forward. When the boss is around, there's no I'm having a bad day or I was distracted. You want to be tuned in because your career depends on it. The guy that he promotes to manage the Western region is the guy who's never sits in the lobby. He's always on. He's always doing the right thing. He's always doing the next right thing. He's always working hard. The guy who doesn't get promoted is the one where he walked by and he was on Facebook or watching reels on Instagram because he didn't want to make any calls that minute. I challenge people, if you buy the book, which would be nice, it's not mandatory, but if you did, you don't have to read it cover to cover. Just flip anywhere in the book and read that particular rule.
True.
The rules exist independent of each other. And I'll say to people when they flip to the middle and they're like, why is this guy telling me how to go for lunch with the customer? Because I've screwed up a lot of deals sitting in the wrong chair and talking about the wrong stuff. I cover everything. How to build rapport, where to sit in the restaurant, how to order food. It covers the gamut. How to hire people, when to fire people. A lot of things that I talk about. I still practice these rules religiously. Whenever my sales guy comes up to me, he goes, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do with this customer. Go see him and always show up with something in your hand and something in your mind. Show up to a customer without something in your hand and something on your mind. You want to talk to him about and you want to give him something. It might be a coffee mug or water bottles you're giving away or mouse pads, or it might be a quote that he asked for or literature that he asked for or technical briefs or something, and then immediately have something you want to ask him.
You have a free worksheet, though, if I recall, where people can learn how to punch without having to sound scripting. Where can they find that worksheet?
It shows them how to, using the Goldilocks principle, using the power of three, good, better, best, cold, hot, medium, hot, package things in threes. But before you start a presentation, you need to change your customer state. And so that's where the punch comes in. And the punch elaborates in the worksheet and how to do it. Basically, what you're doing is you're creating something that snaps everybody to attention. Sometimes, you play a theme when you're getting started. Sometimes you play a video which shows the product in a WSP way, doing what it is that solves their problems. And just don't start by saying, I'd like to talk to you about our thing. We have a factory in Japan. There's 1,200 people. We've also got a factory in Singapore with another 2,000 people. They've all checked out at that point. So, and then tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them and then tell them what you told them. And when you're telling them this stuff, always tell them 3 things, right? If it takes 4 things to tell them about whatever you're doing, it's too many. You've got too much. And if you only have 2, you haven't elaborated enough. And at the end, the close is the customer says, well, how much is it? Because you've done a perfect job. He wanted it when he really, after the punch state, you elaborate with your 3 points, and then they say, how much is it? They're closing themselves. That's the punch, perfect pitch, and close. Yeah, and they can download a worksheet where you can think up ways of catering to that style. And just go to my website and you can download it for free.
I'm going to be definitely putting it in the show notes, your website. I encourage people to download that free worksheet. I'm telling people, I have read over 50 different books in sales. I'm going through an MBA. Most books bore me. Yours doesn't. I am encouraging people to go invest, because I think cost is associated with loss, investment is associated with gain. And what you just said really communicates investment better in those meetings. Buy the book for $20, however much it is a steal for 40 years of experience from you, Glenn, who sold multiple 8-figure businesses. That's from the heart, if that's fair.
Well, thanks, Paul.